All right, welcome everybody. I appreciate you joining us here today. We're going to have a great talk with the FAA CISO. So let me start by welcoming Larry Grossman to DEF CON and the Aerospace Village. Appreciate having you here.
Thanks a lot, Steve. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely, and we appreciate your time. So for everybody, we're going to dig into the government side of things, particularly with the Federal Aviation Administration, talking with Larry about what the FAA's role is, where cybersecurity is a part of that, his role in supporting that overall mission, and then his thoughts on the security research work and the things that he deals with. So before we get rolling, though, I will introduce myself also. I'm Steve Luczynski. I'm the chairman of the nonprofit board that we have that's running the Aerospace Village and helping support these activities. So again, appreciate you all being here and joining us today. For those of you who don't know, Larry Grossman, he is the Federal Aviation Administration's Director of the Office of Information Security and Privacy and the Chief Information Security Officer. In these roles, he provides strategic leadership of FAA's information security and privacy programs. And this isn't the only role he's been in at the FAA. He's been with FAA for 25 years. And I think even more telling is being with the agency that long and as an aviation enthusiast, an avid enthusiast at that. He's a commercial pilot, flight instructor certificates, both land and sea. And he travels in his own aircraft whenever he can. So I'm very jealous of that. So again, I appreciate you being here today, Larry, hearing about your background in both cybersecurity and the aviation side of things and joining us for this discussion. So with that, I want to jump into, if you would, I think, we all think we know what the FAA does. We think we know, or we have a general idea, but not necessarily the details. So I'd be interested in getting your perspective on the FAA's mission, and particularly in the cybersecurity side of things.
Sure. Happy, and I am the official Chief Information Security Officer, but only for the last month. I was acting Chief Information Security Officer for the last 2.5 years. So they finally, made an honest man out of me. But the FAA's mission is very simple. There's basically two pieces to it: safety and efficiency. That's the mission. The mission of the FAA is to safely move aircraft through the National Airspace System, and to assure that they move as efficiently as possible. So from a cybersecurity perspective, there's certainly countless areas that we have to be concerned about. The FAA has roughly 360 FISMA reportable systems. That FISMA is Federal Information System Security Act. It was put in place several years ago. It requires us to inventory all of our systems to perform compliance activities on all those systems. So we have a pretty big inventory. For a moderate size government agency, we have a fairly large number of systems. Within those systems, we have probably 2,500 or so applications that run. So it's a fairly large inventory, certainly a large attack surface, so to speak. And to keep all those systems secure. Historically, FAA has focused inward on those systems, and we've looked at the FAA, just on how we secure our systems and how we secure our services. But the aviation ecosystem is much larger than the FAA specifically, right? And the FAA only has a small piece of it. We do operate the National Airspace System. It's critical infrastructure of the United States, and we move hundreds of thousands of airplanes a day. We're back, now that we're hopefully on the backside of COVID. We're back to roughly 90-something% of pre-COVID numbers. So people are traveling, airplanes are moving, and they're moving safely. The efficiency piece really is really where we get kind of wrapped around the axle at times. How do we keep planes moving efficiently? And we do that through a number of systems that we have to keep secure. And those systems are, working with airlines, working with other partners, and aircraft manufacturers, et cetera. So there's a kind of a lot of pieces that all work together.
Absolutely. No doubt there's a lot to deal with in that sense. One of the things that comes to mind when I think about the FAA is the regulatory side of things, and that's the hammer that comes down that has to impose a fine and punishment. But I know from previous work that we've done with you all, including last year online with a virtual DEF CON, where we had folks from your engagement office who are externally focused. How do you balance the hammer regulator side of things that has to impose when a problem happens, but also the need to engage, the need to get folks to understand vulnerability disclosure and addressing these problems? How do you deal with all of that?
Well, and as a commercial pilot who made his living for a little while as a commercial pilot, I did my best to avoid that hammer as well. So
exactly.
Yeah. So the talk that we had last year, at the Village with our ACI partners, that's kind of one of the areas that we've just fairly recently moved into, and that is, as I said earlier, we've always focused inward. But realizing that the ecosystem is much larger, and what pieces of that ecosystem does FAA own and operate? What pieces do we regulate? And what pieces do we really have either a shared involvement with, like with respect to airlines and airports, and some that we have just no involvement at all. So we formed a team that was working with DHS and DoD. The team became the Aviation Cyber Initiative, and their focus really is around outreach and around understanding how, as example, airlines are securing their system, or how aircraft manufacturers are building in various components. While we do certify the components of the aircraft, we do test the components of the aircraft, there are many parts and pieces to that the airlines, that the aircraft manufacturers do on their own. Airports is another area that that FAA has a very interesting relationship with. Within the United States, there's over 17,000 public use airports, and they kind of run everywhere from a grass strip, in a field somewhere, to Chicago O'Hare, and Atlanta Hartsfield, and kind of everything in between. And we like to say that there's 17,000 airports in the U.S. and there's 17,000 different airports, because each one of those airports is managed a little different, is operated a little differently. Some are operated by airport authorities, some are operated by municipalities. And some are actually privately owned, but are allowed to be public use. And so how do we work with those airlines across the board? So the answer is around outreach, around better understanding how they, how they're implementing cybersecurity, and how we can kind of help them with respect to standards and kind of drive better practices, better cyber hygiene, because really most of it's around cyber hygiene.
Absolutely. So thank you. That's when we have talked about and heard others talk about the complexity of the aviation and aerospace ecosystem, hearing 17,000 really hammers home that point. So that's not something I knew before. So that's good to learn. One thing I didn't, understanding the FAA's overall mission, but also understanding what is your part of that. And I didn't mention it before or ask you, but I'm interested in hearing what was your path, what motivated you to do both avid pilot and joining the FAA. They seem to go together very well, but certainly some cybersecurity thrown in there on top of it.
They do, yeah. It's everyone has their interesting paths to where they get places. So I went to school for aviation. I was a pilot by by training, and I did make it into the military. I wore glasses, so that was the discriminator for me. So I started working as a pilot back in I guess the late 80s ish, and really realized that the path I was taking, the late 80s, there was, everything's about timing, right? Life is about timing. And the timing when I was trying to get hired by, regional aircraft, I was actually flying checks for a while, flying small cargo for a while, flying, you take off at, 1 o'clock in the morning and, in rain and snow and land at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so it was really not a lot of fun. It was fun at first, but after 6 months of that, it started to be not a lot of fun. In a little airplane by yourself, you're kind of flying along, and and so I had an aviation major and a computer science minor, and I found myself getting hired, actually initially part-time by a consulting company for the FAA here where I live in Atlantic City, New Jersey. The FAA has a second level support facility here where we support all of the air traffic control systems that are deployed here. And so I started working on air traffic control systems kind of part-time and flying full-time. And then it kind of evolved to flying, not quite so full-time and working more full-time, and kind of slid myself over into working on air traffic control systems, as a programmer, and then moving up as a designer, developer, then moving up as a manager of the air traffic control systems. And then 9/11 hit. And and like in October of 2001, my boss at the time said, we need, what do you know about cybersecurity? I said, I know enough not to get myself in trouble. That's about it. He said, well, I'm going to get you some training, and we need to figure out how we're going to start securing the air traffic control systems. We don't understand a lot of how we're managing our air traffic control systems. We need more of our kind of administrative functions off of the air traffic control side. And so I deployed a bunch of programs that kind of improved our ability to monitor the operational side, to move a lot of those kind of administrative functions off of the operations and into our mission support environment. And kind of one thing led to another, and so I worked my way around for a while. I worked in cyber for about 7 years, and then I got out of cyber for a little bit and did some work for the FAA administrator around data distribution and around improving the way FAA gives data out. The FAA gives tons and tons and tons of data out. We're one of the largest data distribution. We just spew data out. If anyone ever uses FlightAware or any of those applications, the FAA outputs almost a terabyte a day of data. So there's just a ton of data that we give out. But at the time, we really weren't giving it out in a way that would spur innovation, that would drive innovation. And our FAA administrator at the time said, if we improve the way we're releasing data, we will spur innovation. They'll build better products for pilots to use, and it will improve safety, and we'll move, and so we did that. So I took kind of a break, and then I came back into cyber again. I missed it, so I came back to cyber, and so here I am.
And in no small role, because you're dealing with not only the internal FAA systems, but from what we talked about before, you're running the gamut of things that you have to deal with. What is the scope and scale of your responsibilities? Because I know it's extensive.
Yeah, we have a lot going on. We have our security operations, organization, and we run our own SOC. We're always moving to improve our SOC capabilities. We have a pretty big compliance shop. Compliance is, as I mentioned before, a FISMA requirement, and we we look at every system and service, in the FAA, and make sure that, look at the NIST controls to make sure that their controls are implemented appropriately. That's a huge effort with the number of systems we have. We have a governance shop that writes our policy. We have a pretty big policy, for security and privacy. The policy, it has grown because we've incorporated all of the NIST controls into our policy and how we're going to implement those controls. And so that's a kind of a big effort. We do training. We have our security awareness and role-based training that we conduct. I run our privacy office. We, with all of the privacy documentation that's required, as well as any breach that may occur, we respond to that. Of course, SID's organization, that's our externally facing organization, and all the work we're doing around, CDM, the continuous diagnostics and mitigation effort, the new executive order that's out. Our work with a lot of our partners. I work closely with other agencies and departments. We have a lot of big efforts with DoD. FAA and DoD share a lot of commonality with respect to moving aircraft and et cetera. And that's it.
Just a couple of things here and there.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before Sid's group, and Sid was with us last year, and it was great to hear him talk about that engagement and outreach, and that's with our audience in particular. So that's an area I wanted to dig into, is the efforts that you all are making to connect with the security researcher community. And so I'm interested in your thoughts of what's driving that, and what is y'all's approach to improve those type of engagements.
Yeah, so well, we're always looking to improve our engagements with the research community. We're doing it on our own with several initiatives that Sid is leading. We have a lot of engagements. We're engaged with the Aviation ISAC very closely, around, which is kind of focused on aviation, but also through mandate by DHS through a directive 2001 that really requires us to run a disclosure program where we invite researchers to look for vulnerabilities and look for them in a positive manner and report them to us. And so we have a pretty big effort right now ongoing. We started with one externally facing site. Now I think we're at 4 or 5 externally facing sites. Over the course of the next, I think 12 or 18 months, I can't remember exactly which, all of the externally facing sites that the FAA has, and there are quite a few, will be open for researchers to look for vulnerabilities, and we're certainly looking forward to that engagement. It was funny, the first week we had one website up. I think it went live on a Friday, and by Monday we had like 5 reports, and
Nice.
And there were 5 different reports, and and some of them were not valid, but some of them were, hey, we found cross-site scripting here, we found, I forget what the other one was, but there are it's certainly crowdsourcing, looking for vulnerabilities in a collaborative and productive way is very important to us, and we know we can't find all the bugs and all the vulnerabilities, so we certainly look forward to folks helping us and the folks that are listening here.
Absolutely. So 2 things came to mind. I know we're recording this ahead of time, and there's going to be a live question and answer where we'll both be on there while this is being recorded. I'm sure folks are going to ask, what is that website address? What are all the website addresses?
Sorry, I
so
can't
that's
tell
something.
You. Sorry, I can't. No, okay. No.
The public ones. So I will
definitely.
get those from you when we get done recording, and I'll have it ready, because I know that's going to come up, and that's great because we want to get that out there and share that. We've done that before with CISA and their program. And the other part of the work that you're talking about, all the way back to DEF CON 27, when we, the Aviation Village, that was the first time we were there. And I know you were part of the behind the scenes with the CAN bus disclosure that was coordinated through CISA and Rapid 7 and Patrick Kiley's research that led to rolling that out at the time. So we're very appreciative of that the cooperation, and somebody like you that has definitely seen behind the scenes what goes into all of it to making that happen. And I think experience with other types of disclosures in the public, whether or not they were coordinated or were just disclosed. So definitely good to see that experience.
Absolutely.
That you've got to share from there.
That was my first, the first work we did with Rapid 7, and we've had other engagements with them as well. So it was a great engagement.
Yeah, you bet. How about on the workforce side? I think the typical thing that you hear is we can't find the right people, we can't get the right skills. You're competing with others, especially as a government agency. What are your thoughts on? Are you seeing the same problems, or is FAA doing something different to engage and attract folks with those skills?
Well, you know what I like to say. The unemployment rate for cybersecurity professionals is in the negative numbers, right? There's certainly not enough cyber folks to go around. So we do compete for the cybersecurity workforce. We do it pretty successfully too, I might add. I think, we are a government agency, but we do have flexibilities for hiring that have been offered to us through OPM, Office of Personnel Management. We have a great mission. I think the mission of the FAA is what is really what attracts folks to us, and we have had folks come from from a lot of our vendor community, our contractor workforce have moved over. Some of them have even taken a pay cut to move over. Not a lot. I mean, we could be pretty competitive salary wise. But we're certainly can be competitive, and they just love the mission. There's nothing cooler than moving airplanes and being involved in a system that is as critical to the U.S. and the global economy. We work internationally extensively, down to the technical level of work that we're able to do, and the high demand that we have for workforce. So I think we're doing pretty well. We do better than a lot of my peer CISOs that we talk about. Mm-hmm. In addition, the recent legislation, I should add, required actually 2018 the 2018 Reauthorization Act that gave FAA its authority to run. We're a piece of the Department of Transportation, but we operate under our own authority. And one of the items on there was that we conduct we engage with the National Academy of Science to conduct a study of the cybersecurity workforce on how to attract and retain that cybersecurity workforce that we need, because I think Congress recognized that it's such a critical function. The FAA is so critical to our economy and to safety of everyone that that they asked us to do this. And the report was just released, and so I will also have the web address of that. I'll provide that to you too, that folks can go read that. And it made it. I think we got 18 recommendations around workforce, around moving forward, and most of them were pretty positive. I mean, I believe that we have a really good workforce, but it's certainly a workforce that is it's an experienced workforce, and it's a lot of folks transition. The cyber landscape is changing so rapidly now. It's almost logarithmic changes. And what we would love to have are those next generation of cyber professionals that want a really cool mission, that want to come and make a difference in in the United States, in our security, in the critical infrastructure of the United States. The FAA is the only department within the government that operates a piece of the critical infrastructure. The kind of technologies that we're deploying now would really be exciting, I think, for folks that want to get engaged.
Yeah, you bet. So it sounds like there's no doubt you all are hiring.
Oh, no doubt.
There you go.
Bring it on.
Absolutely. All right. So my last question before we wrap things up here, what is your biggest concern? What keeps you up at night as the FAA CISO, looking at internal issues, external issues across the breadth and all of that complex ecosystem that we talked about?
Well, Steve, you were a CISO fairly recently. If you got any sleep when you were a CISO, you're not doing your job, right? You give up. That's part of the job requirements. You don't sleep. No, I think we do. There's a lot of things that and I mentioned some of them. I mentioned certainly the sophistication of the adversary that we're facing has really changed. SolarWinds kind of showed that, right? The SolarWinds compromise showed us all that these folks are state-sponsored, highly sophisticated, highly motivated, can live off the land very easily, go undetected. When you say, well, what are the IOCs? Well, there are no IOCs, right? But you have compromise, and so that certainly is worrisome to us. The fact that we went almost overnight from average of about 4,000 employees of 45,000 teleworking to 35,000 teleworking. It's kind of a snap of a finger, and it required us to make some pretty significant changes in how we monitor and secure endpoints. How we monitor and secure our systems. We give all of our employees a workstation, a government issued workstation. They put it on their kitchen table. They work from 9 to 5, and then at 6:30, 7 o'clock, they're like, well, here's a computer sitting here. I got to go order some stuff off of Target Online, or I want to go watch a movie, or I want to go. So we've really had to lock down the workstations. We've locked down the services that folks can run, and it's that balance of securing our equipment, our systems, our services, and user convenience and user performance. And I think the last thing that keeps me up at night, the last of the top three that keep me up at night are the FAA used to own the entire airspace. We used to own all the systems and all the services, and really we're moving more to getting a lot of services now. Mm-hmm. So it's really not a factor of us securing our systems and services. It's also securing the systems and services that we acquire from our partners. And how do they secure their systems and services, and then how do those folks control? So it's kind of a long road, and that's kind of where SID's ecosystem work comes in. It's where the work that we do with the other lines of business and staff offices within the FAA. So those are, I guess, the top three.
Just the top three, which is plenty enough, and I know there's lots more. So. Well, Larry, I really appreciate the time. I have no doubt our audience, lots of questions coming in, I'm sure, as we've been talking here, and plenty more. So thank you for, that's great insight. Things that, again, I thought I had some familiarity with the FAA, but learning the full scope and scale of what you all are doing, what you personally are doing, and again, taking time out to share that with our audience. We're very appreciative of that. So. With that, I'll say thank you to everybody who joined us today, and we look forward, if you're on site, to talking with us in the Village. Otherwise, keep an eye out on our website for future events from the Aerospace Village. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot for having me, Steve.
You bet.